Hey everyone, it's Jonathan here, founder of Driving Academy, and today we're going to be talking about our new president, Donald Trump, his plan for tariffs, and how that's going to affect the trucking industry as a whole. My goal is not to make this politicized at all. We're just going to look at pure facts, and we're just going to take a common sense approach of what's happening in the world when it comes to trucking and tariffs, and if that's going to be good or bad for truckers. We're going to look at the near-term side of, okay, what can potentially be affected if tariffs do come into effect, and what's going to be the long-term play and how is that going to benefit? Are truckers going to be happy or upset when it comes to these tariffs itself? And let's just take a logical approach to it and come along with me, and make sure you put your comments below and let me know whether you agree with me or not. So the first thing that you have to understand is, what is a tariff and what is everybody actually talking about? Now, this is a very common thing that we know. We hear this word all the time, but we don't really know what it actually means. And pretty much all it is like a sales tax on anything coming from overseas. So when you think about like the history of the world in the beginning, every country was kind of there to fend for itself. They had to produce its own products. It had to kind of create its own community within and its own economy. From there, we went to a globalistic view, right? So now we use globalization, where now we have certain countries that are really good at certain things and other countries that are really good at other things. As an example, China is really good at manufacturing things in bulk. So that's why you get a lot of made in China type of products all over the US. And you can get those things pretty cheap because their labor market's cheaper. And for instance, the US is really good at coming up with technologies and things like that because that's what they specialize in. There has started a shift in the world where we're going back to more of an interdependent countries itself, where now, because of the whole supply chain disruption that actually happened with COVID, it actually showed how dependent every country is on each other. And now there's starting to look like a shift where every country kind of wants to be independent itself. So making sure that they're able to withstand within their own economy, within their own people. So tariffs is one way to actually get that done. All right, so now let's take it into actual practical approach. What are tariffs itself? So say you're a company that produces, I don't know, like microphones like you see here. And you're a company that produces microphones in the United States, and you're a company that produces microphones in China. Now, in the United States, our labor laws itself require that we pay our people a lot more than what they do in China. So just off that alone, the Chinese manufacturer is actually going to be able to produce this much lower rate, and in many cases much lower quality as well. But now you're not really comparing apples to apples. And because the consumer always wins in a free market, the idea of a tariff is, okay, let's even out the playing field. So this guy itself maybe is 25% more expensive than this guy over here because he's made overseas. So what the idea of tariffs are is, okay, let's just make it a fair playing field. Let's bring this guy to be at the same cost that is as if he was going to manufacture in the United States itself. Now, the consumer gets to pick, okay, do they want the Chinese product or do they want the American-made product? And that's pretty much the overall view, with the ultimate goal of convincing these guys in China who are going to be manufacturing a whole bunch of stuff over there to potentially lose their business interest in China and actually make a big investment in the States itself, so then they can build factories and they can actually employ people and all that stuff. Now, a lot of people have different ideas of what actually happens with tariffs, and a lot of people are afraid, well, it's just going to make everything more expensive. Remember, the goal is not to make things more expensive, it's to make it an even playing field. All right, so now let's see how practical this actually is. So when we actually look in the past, when did this actually happen before? So there was an actual tariff put on washing machines. The washing machine industry, there was a tariff put on anything coming from overseas. So what did that do? In the short term, it did make washing machines more expensive. Why is that? Because a lot of the people who were purchasing washing machines from overseas, those products got a lot more expensive, but it did make a much even playing field. And ultimately what wound up happening was the people who had a huge market in the United States. So for instance, if you had a washing machine factory in a different country, and now you just lost all that potential buying power, what you did because you had enough volume is that those washing machine companies actually set up factories in the States itself, which means now they're bringing U.S. jobs to the United States. The quality was a little bit better than it was before now that they're manufacturing in the States. And now when you actually look at the longer time horizon, I think it's been over like 8 years now, washing machines have actually gone down in price ever since then. So when you put a tariff in place, if it's done correctly with the right strategy, in the short term, it will increase prices, but long term, it should increase more jobs in the local market that you're living in your country, and it should reduce the actual cost of it and increase the quality as well, because at the end of the day, the free market is what determines who's the winner is, right? So if a consumer is going to pick one washing machine over another and price is not going to be the factor anymore and it's going to be based on quality, now you have competitors competing on how can we make it an even better quality product for an even cheaper price, and the consumer always wins. So how does this affect trucking as a whole? So let's kind of look at the different things that can actually be affected. The most expensive things that could be affected in trucking in the short term is if there's going to be tariffs on things that are manufactured overseas. So what could be manufactured overseas? For instance, trucks. Now, for a good news is a lot of trucks are actually manufactured in the actual United States of America. Some of them are done in Canada and some of them are done in Mexico, but because of how close they are, the tariffs on those countries are not going to be as high as other countries that are further away. So for the near term, it does not look like anything's really going to happen on overall truck pricing. But if a tariff was to be put in place, of course, in the short term, truck pricing will start to increase overall. The beautiful thing about trucks is they last a long time. An average truck, like I said before, about 100,000 miles on a car is equivalent to having about 1 million miles on a truck itself. So the used truck market is entirely huge and big, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. And even if the truck prices do go up by a percentage, most people actually wind up financing it. So as your monthly payments, it doesn't really affect your monthly payments per se. The other thing that can affect truckers right off the bat is going to be if there's an oil tariff, right? So if on all oil coming overseas, if there's a big tariff there, then of course the actual oil prices can go up, which means the diesel prices will go up, which means your expenses will go up as well, right? But let's be clear, at the shooting of this video, there's currently no tariffs actually in place on any one of those things. There's a lot of things in the works, and media is going to scare you a lot, so just make sure you stay well informed. Now, let's actually think about it logically, what's happening for the longer time horizon on trucking itself. So say tariffs, worst case scenario, tariffs are on everything that come overseas. When you actually think about it from a trucking point of view, when a lot of stuff is manufactured overseas, there's only one pickup point, which means the ports become super heavy, and that means a lot of volumes going through those ports all the time. So if they're manufacturing everything and shipping a finished product over to the United States, that's exactly what's going to be happening. Now, say that the port rates actually reduce, which means that the volume of stuff coming into the port reduces because the tariffs go up, which means a lot of U.S. customers are not going to be purchasing stuff from overseas because that stuff is more expensive. So if all of a sudden volume drops on the ports, then that can potentially mean that overall the actual volume for things that need to be shipped will drop, because the ports are a huge pull for the actual trucking industry itself. A lot of things that get transported within the country came here first on an actual boat. But now, when you think about it, when a finished product comes to the port, now pretty much there's only really 2 or 3 trips that truck now has to do. Has to take that finished product from the port to the warehouse, from the warehouse to the finished store, and that's where you're going to buy the finished product, as an example. However, if tariffs do what they say they're going to do, that means that imports may actually drop, and what winds up happening is that you're going to have a lot more manufacturing happening within the country. And now when you're thinking about manufacturing and trucking in within the country, you're going to have a factory A that's going to have certain raw materials and factory B that has other raw materials, which means to get that same product, you're going to need to now hire multiple trucks, because now there's going to be transportation that has to happen from this factory to that factory, from that factory to a finishing factory, as an example, and then from that finishing factory all the way to the end. Because if you were just to conceptualize it itself, think about where, say we'll take China as an example. In order for China to create that finished product, there's a bunch of truck drivers in China that actually got paid to transport that product from raw material to the factory to process that. Another truck got paid to actually take it from the raw to that factory to another one, and then ultimately to put everything together. And one more truck got paid to take it to that finished product all the way to their port. So when you think about that, it's actually going to increase the actual trucking activity needed, which means the demand for truck drivers will actually go up if we start doing a lot of internal manufacturing here in this country, in the United States. So what does that actually mean for truck drivers? That means when you think about the logics of supply and demand, there's going to be a lot more demand for trucking because there's going to be a lot more manufacturing happening within the country. There's going to be a lot more jobs out there, a lot more factories, which means when there's a lot more demand for something and there's a short supply, what do you think is going to happen to the rates? The rates are going to start going up. Now, if you've been in trucking for the past couple of years, you might have been seeing the rates kind of dip and then kind of go back up type of thing. This would be actually amazing if it actually does happen. And how do we know it's going to happen? If you start seeing a lot more factories opening up and a lot more manufacturing jobs popping up out of there, because anytime you have manufacturing, trucking always wins every single time. Now, currently right now in this country, there's about an 80,000 driver shortage, and that's in the economy that we're currently in. If this stuff does start to happen, and it happens quicker than later, that driver shortage is going to start to increase dramatically. And what's going to happen there is that means that the starting salaries for a lot of these companies are going to start going up again, because they're all going to be needing brand new CDL drivers to fulfill all the new work that's coming on board. So when you take the overall holistic approach, one of three things can happen. Nothing's going to change, and the tariffs are just kind of like a scare tactic that the current administration is kind of using. Tariffs do work, and all of a sudden now a whole lot of manufacturing does happen in the United States, which is going to be great for the actual trucking industry. Or the tariffs don't work and everything just gets more expensive, and pretty much everything kind of gets inflated there. The beautiful thing about worst case scenario, if things do get more expensive, the economy runs on trucking, right? So that means everything, even if nothing does change, you're going to do the same exact thing that's happening right now. In most cases, things are going to start to get better. A lot of people believe that, especially in the business world itself, and that's going to be a great opportunity for anybody looking to get a CDL license, because as the demand for trucking starts to increase, as the economy starts to increase and things like that, trucking is going to be a big part of all that. So maybe investing in getting yourself a new skill set in this new time of change, as they're saying, might be the smartest thing that you can do for you and for your future. So if you are interested in learning how to drive a truck, getting yourself a CDL license, come to the best CDL school in the country here at Driving Academy. Check out our website, cdldrivingacademy.com. Again, cdldrivingacademy.com. Thanks, and have a great day. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, make sure you hit that like button. Also, subscribe to our channel. It's really going to help us out. Click on that button. And if you want to continue yourself on your road to freedom, here's more videos to watch. There's endless amounts. Hopefully we get to see each other one day very soon. Thanks.